afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining us this afternoon. My name is Jacqueline Daly. I'm one of the senior business advisors from the women's organisation here in Liverpool, and I'm also representing today the Liverpool Central Library, BIPC. We have our guests today who are Jade Thunder from #WebsDesign and Debbie Rogers from Sean's Place, and I will allow them to do their own introductions. So Jade, if I could start with you, please.
Yeah, hi everybody. My name is Jade Thunder and I'm from #WebDesigns, which I founded in January 2019. I've been a web designer for about 10 years. Before that, I was a multitude of things. It's taken me a long time to get here. And I'm still not sure what I want to be when I grow up, so there is still time.
And Debbie, please, if we can come to you.
Yeah, I'm Debbie Rogers. Hi everyone. I'm the founder of Sean's Place. Sean's Place was founded in July last year as well. A little bit different to Jade. I didn't have any experience in this sector at all, so I went into this completely blind, completely new. It was born from real experience. I lost my brother to suicide last year. So yeah, it all happened quite quickly, and we'll tell you a little bit more as the interview goes on.
Okay, thank you. And I think that's one of the reasons why I was excited to have you both on the panel, is because you're both from very different backgrounds and have very different startup experiences. And that's quite important to sort of show that when you do have an idea of a startup, it can come from all sorts of origins, and not to be afraid of, when the opportunity arises, taking that forward. But the main thing that I would like to say is obviously that when you do have a concept or an idea, look for support, whether that's from friends and family initially, but also then obviously get in contact with the BIPC, the women's organisation, and other sources of business support that can give you advice and guidance to help you along your business journey. Jade, did you get any support at all when you first started your business or before you started your business?
So how I got into website design was because it was a family business, and my mum and my brother worked in the business too. And they were primarily graphic design, marketing, and then saw an opportunity for website designs, and I upskilled in that area. I never did a degree. It's all self-taught. And then just, sorry, I forgot the question. I forgot your actual question.
No, it's fine. So it's sort of thinking about what sort of support did you get, when you were looking at starting the business?
Yeah. So when I transferred to being on my own, it was kind of, I already had an idea of what I wanted to do. So in terms of support, it was just really friends and family just encouraging me and making me believe in myself, because a lot of the time I didn't really think I was good enough to be able to do it on my own. So so I think I relied heavily on friends and family in that sense.
That's a key element with a lot of startups, I think, is having that self-confidence and self-belief in actually thinking that you can take it from what's in your head to actually being able to deliver, whether it's a product or a service.
Yeah.
So Debbie, if we can come to you, what sort of support did you look for or did you receive when you started Sean's Place?
Yeah, I think what you've just said was so key to me, because I didn't believe that I could do this at first. As we said before, I'd just lost my brother to mental health, and I knew there was a massive gap there that I could potentially fill. I thought, well, somebody's got to do it, so why not it be me in my brother's memory? Let's create a safe space for men where they can go. I didn't even know where to start. I just knew I had this idea and I really wanted to run with it. And luckily someone posted me in the direction of the women's organisation. And I went in, I was still grieving, I was emotional wreck, and I was like, I've got this idea and I really want to help people, but I don't know where to start. And then it was yourself, Jacqueline, who was my wonderful business advisor, who said, Debbie, I absolutely believe in this idea and I believe in you, and you're going to get there. And just you saying that to me just lifted this massive cloud off my shoulders, because I thought, oh my gosh, she believes this can actually happen. So now I've got the idea, now I've got someone backing me and believing me. I feel like I can do it now, and 12 months later I am doing it. So forever grateful to you, Jacqueline, as well.
Oh no, thank you, Debbie. It's been a pleasure to work with you. So Jade, obviously you had support there. You had people within your family, within your network that were already doing something very similar to what you wanted to start to do. Did that hinder you in any way though either? Because did you maybe perhaps see them, or did they see you as competition, as that you perhaps might come and maybe take away their client base or something? Or were you looking to do something slightly different?
Yeah, so actually, it's so interesting that you say that. No one's ever asked me that before, but yeah, that actually did happen. My family were really upset with me for wanting to go on my own. The reason I wanted to go on my own was just because I've always been part of the family business, and I've always done what everybody else told me to do. Growing up, get a degree, get a secure job, get this. And I just found myself very conflicted, because that's not who I am. I'm very creative. I need to be able to express myself. And so when I decided to join the family business, it was a three-way split. But of course, when you have a three-way split, you're not the sole voice. There are other people involved. And when it's family, it's almost like it's 10 times harder. Some families really get on. They see eye to eye on pretty much everything, and it's quite sickening. For me, because it wasn't like that for me, and I had very strong opinions. So I felt it was best for me to go on my own. But yeah, that making that break was really difficult. They saw it as a direct competition, and I said, no, we can work together. And they at first did not see that, but now, nearly 2 years later, it's getting a lot easier.
That's nice to hear. That's great. And I think, again, a key element to any business is actually collaboration. It's not necessarily competition. It's how you can work together with other businesses that are similar to yours, and perhaps work on those strengths that you have and the strengths that they have. And also having somebody that when maybe something comes along that isn't the right fit for you, you don't sort of feel as if you can't sort of pass it on to somebody that you can highly recommend, because you know someone who is able to take that off your hands, in effect.
Yeah, exactly. There's been a few times over the last couple of years where I felt that I did not want to work with a particular client, not because I don't want the money. Of course, everybody wants the money, but it just didn't line up with my values and what I wanted, because you take on a client that doesn't vibe with you and is on your level, you will end up resenting them and hating them, and then not giving them the service they deserve. So having that alliance is really cool, because then I can say, well, I've got a kind of difficult client, but I know that you're more than capable of dealing with it. Would you like me to refer you? So actually, the collaboration works really well.
You do a lot of collaborative work, don't you, Debbie, with what you do with Sean's Place? You have a lot of people and partners that either feed into you or you feed out into, is that right?
And it's so important to have that. Like, one of the first things that was suggested to me was to write a list of my supporters. I'm so lucky that I've got an amazing team. Sean's Place is volunteer led, so we all do this because we want to give back to the community, which already makes it such a unique bond. But they're incredible, and I couldn't do this without them. I needed that team to be able to make this happen and drive it forward. But it's not just about the team that we have who help me to run the service. As you say, it's about those who could potentially be seen as competition. We're all applying for the same pot of money, but what I chose to do instead was to work with them. So we do like a family support network, and instead of me doing everything on my own, I said, okay, well, let's bring in organisations who are similar, who are in the community, and let's show people what's there. So we give them opportunities to come in, share what they do with the people who have access to our service. They talk about how they can access their service, because I think organisations, as you've just said, Jade, they're not one size fits all, and there has to be options there for people. And I think the more you can sort of connect and collaborate with people, as long as you know the values and the morals are the same as you, the absolute easy your journey will be, especially as you're starting out your organisation.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So obviously with yourself, Jade, the market research element was pretty much led by what was already there. You knew there was a client base because you'd already worked within that sector. But for you, Debbie, obviously it was something very, very, very different. It's come completely away from what you were doing previously. You don't have any experience in that field at all. So what sort of market research did you do to be able to show that there was a demand for the service that you were looking to provide?
That's it. I knew from personal experience that, you know, there was a demand, but that wasn't enough for me to be able to create an organisation from it. So the first thing we did was speak to those that would be potentially accessing the service. So we used SurveyMonkey and just did a general survey about, you know, would you come to a service like this? What kinds of things would you like to see there? Where would you like it to be based? That sort of thing. And then from the feedback from that survey, we then created pilot days, and we did 3 pilots using the information that we gathered from the survey. So people attended the pilot days with the family and friends, they take part in the activities, and they spoke to us to give us feedback. And from that was how we formed the timetable when we opened in January last year. So it's so important to speak to those who you're going to be sort of representing. You need their voice in whatever you do, because, you know, I'm not a male, I don't suffer with a mental health. So for me to be running a men's mental health organisation, I've got my brother's experience of it, but it's so important that we speak to the men who are accessing the service. Otherwise, we wouldn't last 12 months. We'd have gone under by now. And that's why we see some organisations that open, they don't speak to those who are going to be accessing the service. And that's why they close quite quickly, or they're not very well attended, because they're not speaking to those people who matter most, really.
For sure, absolutely. One of the first things that we get anybody to do when they are looking at a business idea is looking at the viability of that business idea. So is there a demand? What is the market saying? What is it asking for? There's no point in you coming up with a new product and nobody wants it. It's not going to fit a need in any way, shape or form. So that's really where sort of assessing the viability comes from, is that actual market research, getting out there and speaking to people. What are they looking for? What do they want? And you did that really well, Debbie, which was great. Obviously with Jade, you already knew there was a demand. You were already working within the market, but did you adapt your service in any way? Or did you sort of review things as you were going through? Were you continuing to do any sort of market research at all?
Yeah, so a bit like Debbie, when you're in the thick of it, so to speak, you do ask for feedback, and, you know, so in the form of testimonials with my business. And I found that actually, as I'm working with clients, I actually work better with women, because I sort of have a knack to break it down easily. And I think we're in the tech industry in particular, it's so male dominated that actually you can feel quite intimidated and a bit stupid from time to time, you know, when you're trying to do something. So I've actually found a bit of a niche in terms of working with women. I won't exclude men. Very few men want to work with a woman in tech, actually, I found, but you know, the door's still open there. So yeah, so as I'm growing, I'm looking at different avenues, like what's my ideal client look like? You know, who are they? Where do they shop? Where, you know, what are their lives like? And then as I'm saying, well, I want to work with women, how do I tailor my services so that that person can see themselves in my business? It's quite an advanced thing to do, but yeah, but to look at it from that point of view rather than what I want to do, because what I want to do is very different to what my target audience actually needs from me.
That's really strange that you should say that it's more women that you work with than men, and yet Debbie, you are the complete polar opposite to that. You know, it's very much all men that you are working with, and they are your client base. One of the things that we say here at the Women's Organisation is looking at creating client avatars, looking at that demographic of your client base. As you say, there's no point in delivering to everybody what you want, because you're not, you know, necessarily your ideal, you know, client, and not everybody is you. We all come in different shapes and sizes. We all have different needs and demands, and you have to obviously be able to service those different needs or demands. Otherwise, if you're not able to diversify, then the sustainability of your business could be quite limited. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think, I'm sure in 12 months time it might change again and I'm open to it. I think you've just got to be really aware of what's happening in your business all the time and just adapting and not being afraid to make those changes as well, because it'll either work or it won't, but you've still got a previous plan that was working, so you can go back to it.
Yeah, and I think the thing is as well, picking up on that, you might have several different types of customers. Like obviously our main, the person that we support are males who need support for the mental health, but other customers may be different organisations that are referring into us. It may also be corporate bodies who we're delivering services to when we deliver our mental health workshops. So you need to look at, obviously, like you've just said, Jade, your customer base might change each year, and ours is growing each year as we identify different customers and what they look like, and then sort of adapting so that we can meet the needs of them different customers throughout the organisation.
So you touched very briefly there on a plan, Jade. Did you have a business plan?
Not in the formal sense of a business plan, no. I was very ill prepared in that sense. I knew what I wanted to create. I had a vision. Being a creative person, I had a vision of what I wanted to get to. So I asked a business mentor, a friend of mine who's a business mentor, to sort of say, do us a favour and just look over my ideas and tell me if I'm absolutely mental for wanting to go into this. And she basically just reassured me. Again, it's going back to that friends and family sort of support. And then I came up with a rough idea of the structure of the business, and then looking at the pricing and things like that, and just really going to like basics, of what you need for a business. And having like a website was key for me, but some businesses don't necessarily need a website to start with because they're a clothing business and they can do it on Instagram, for example. Or Sean's Place might have a better target audience on Twitter or LinkedIn because it's a more professional sort of, mental health awareness. Or even Facebook might be a really good platform. But yeah, so looking at like what I needed to start with, but no formal business plan now. And looking back, I probably would have benefited from doing that because it would have saved me a lot of time because I kept dodging bullets essentially.
There are a lot of elements within a business plan that I think are just for consideration. So even if you don't necessarily do a full formal business plan and write it all out and type it into 50 pages, as some of them can be, it can sometimes just be what we call a business model canvas, a one-page business plan, something that basically just acts as like a vision board, something that just covers all of those various elements, customer analysis, competitor analysis, supplier analysis, what resources and equipment do you need, how much money do you need to start up the business, who are you trying to sell to, whether that's products or services, they can be very different. What are your skills, what we call a SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats. There are lots of various analyses that need to take place when you are doing a business plan, but it doesn't have to be as complex or as complicated as those sort of giant documents that you throw onto a desk and it makes the loudest thud ever. It can literally just be something like a vision board that will help you just to assess each of those areas in bullet point form. So the same question to you really, Debbie. Did you have or did you create a business plan?
Initially, I was just like Jade. I had this vision. I didn't think I needed a business plan. I was like, well, my business plan's in my head. What do I need it on paper for? But then when I did the business model canvas, I'm so glad that I did. And my business model canvas on day one isn't the same as it is now. These things are changeable, but what it does is it forces you to go away and do your research. So I didn't think I would have any competitors. I didn't know any other male mental health organisations existed, for example, because I didn't know where to find them for my brother. But that wasn't to say they didn't exist. And what it allowed me to do was go and find out where they are, how they operate, how much it costs them to run their service. Also, who my customer base was, like we discussed before. What were the threats? If I was going to open this, what were the threats that I might come up against? But also, where were the opportunities? And it's something that I do go back to regularly. I don't necessarily do the full page, 50-page business plan, but as long as that canvas is updated, it just sort of aligns me with what I need to do. Do I need to do more research? Do we need have the threats now become opportunities? So it's quite nice to see it in black and white. And also what you'll find is when you go to some organisations and you're sort of pitching your business or your organisation, some of them say, don't come to me with a 50-page business plan. They literally just want that one pager. So it's important to make it punchy and really sell your organisation within that canvas.
Totally. They actually say something like you have about 7 seconds to make that first impression. And if you haven't within that period of time, well, you've pretty much lost that person potentially, and it's going to take a little while longer to get them back on board for you. So you also touched on their Jade website. Ooh. Now, okay, so obviously your service, I would assume you have a website. You had a website from day one. So did you do it yourself, or did you get somebody else to do it for you?
I did it myself. I have to say, since day one, I've probably redesigned it completely 6 times, honestly. Not that I like to admit that, but when you first start and you don't have a business plan properly thought out, like I should have done, you throw up what you think people want to see. And then as you grow, you realise, oh, this isn't working. Do I need it to be more of a sales funnel? Do I need it to be this? And then you start looking at the competitors. What are they doing? And you start comparing. And it's a really dangerous place to get in. There was about 6 months where I was just obsessed with checking in with these huge competitors that have been established for 20 years. And here's me 6 months in going, well, I can't compete with them. And that's the point. I couldn't, and I still can't really, because they are a different league. They've got 50 staff. They're, you know, I'm a sole trader. I'm just me. So it would be, it's pretty stupid to compare myself. Well, I say it's a bit harsh, I know, but I tell myself, well, that's a bit stupid, you know. You shouldn't make that direct comparison. It's not the same. So then when I looked at my website and I had to really strip it back. What do I want? What do my customers want? What are they asking for all the time? Is there something that's not clear on the website that they're looking for? And it's just doing that. I guess it's feedback, really, asking people all the time. When I attended networking events, like, what do you want to see from a website designer? What do you want? And it's just being really aware of your business and using it. I call it an online business card, because that's essentially what it is. It's a glorified business card. It's all your information and a little bit more. But when they talk to you, it's essentially you that they're buying, not the website. So it's important for some people. I wouldn't necessarily say it was important for every business. It just depends on your business model and how you want to go about selling yourself.
Absolutely. And I think a website, there's no point in having a website if you don't have anybody who knows how to find it. You know, if you have no brand identity, if you have no way of other people finding you, then you are what we call the world's greatest secret, potentially. You know, if you don't have the SEO to back it up, search engine optimization as it stands for, if you don't understand any of that, then actually having a website is not going to help you reach your ideal client base and for people to actually purchase your products or services anyway. Exactly. I think for you though, because you're obviously designing websites for other people, your calling card is very much your website. You absolutely had to nail that for people to sort of say, oh, that's reflective of what I want, and therefore I want to work with this person.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you brought up the branding, because I think hashtag has had the same logo, the same font, but the colours, the variations of colours I've had in the last 2 years, I've gone from black and grey, the most vibrant colours you could possibly imagine, to like corals and teals. I don't think when people meet me, I'm not a very coral and teal person. I have red lipstick on, I'm vibrant, and that's who I am. So I had to really look at how it translates in person as well, because you are the face of the website. So if the website is even black and grey and white, and then I come in front of you and I'm like, hi, leather jacket, you know, red lipstick, it's just all out of sync. So branding is absolutely key, and that should be part of the business model as well at the beginning, because if you don't know your identity, how can you then sell yourself? Because you can't without that.
Yeah. And thinking about brand identity, how did you come up with the name for your business?
I was searching websites. So of course, when you search, I use hashtags. So I went hashtag websites, and all of a sudden was like hashtag webs. Oh my God, it was staring me in the face. And yeah, I wanted to use the hashtag symbol initially, and I did for a while, but it just got complicated when people were trying to find me. and actually put in the hashtag symbol. So I dropped it and just used the word.
I think that's again another element really that we needed to touch on there, is that what you see in a word or things isn't necessarily what somebody else sees. So when you're saying to somebody, oh yes, use the hashtag, in your hashtag webs, it can be difficult, when you use numbers or when you use and, do you use the word, do you use the ampersand? All of those things can be quite crucial when you're creating your brand identity, because it can quite overly complicate things for when people are trying to find you. And so the more simplistic you can make it, the easier it is for people then when you are telling them over the telephone or whatever. Is going to be so much easier for them to actually be able to type it in without visually seeing that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So your situation is very different, Debbie. Obviously, being a social enterprise, you didn't have to think about the name. It was very much, it was going to be named after Sean, your brother, who you very sadly lost. But your website, so I know that you do have a website. You didn't have one initially. It did take you a little bit of time to get one created for you. But how did that come about, and did you get any help with that?
Yeah, for me, it was so important to have a website, because that's how the guys were going to find us. That's how people were going to seek out the support. So my website needed to speak to those people. It needed to be easy to navigate it, because I suppose if someone's going onto the website to look for support, they may well be suffering from anxiety while they're seeking for it. So I didn't want it to be overcomplicated. I wanted it to speak to them, and I wanted it to be authentic as well. And as Jay said before, the first thing you see on the website is a photo of Sean and then a little message from me, so that they know that this is, it's a really personable organization. We're not some humongous corporate national place that's run by robots. We are real people, and this is who we are. So thankfully, technology to me is like so alien. It was like a whole new world to me, and I put out like a little call in on Facebook. And this is the important thing as well. People do want to help. So don't be scared to ask for help. If you've got something that's not one of your strengths, ask, because people love the opportunity to help somebody else. So I put a message out on Facebook, and this wonderful little angel from heaven called Lynn said to me, right, I can really help you with this. And she introduced me to WordPress. And literally all she did was set up like a template on the website, and she said, you're going to do the rest. I'm going to teach you how to run your website. And she did. All she did was the template. Everything else on there has come from myself, somebody with no tech experience at all. And I've been able to create I think it's a lovely little website. I think it does the job. It speaks to the people it needs to speak to. And it's growing every single day as well. But that all stemmed from just asking somebody for that little bit of support to get me on the first step, and now I can sort of get myself up the rest of the stairs then, because of that initial little helping hand. So yeah, I really love the website, and mine is teal, but it also ties in well with the branding. And it's like Jade said before, one of the first things someone said to me was, look at your logo, look at your branding. Can you put that logo on a t-shirt? Can you put it on a roller banner? Do people know when they see your logo that that's Sean's place? And it was literally something as simple as a beautiful little teal feather that represents a lot to me personally. Now when people see that teal feather, I hope that they think about Sean's place when they see it. Whereas if we had this really overcomplicated logo, which I was initially going for, no, that could have been associated with anything. So one of the first things that I would think about doing if I was going to do this again, it would be creating a logo and creating your brand, knowing who you are and how that's going to come across in your website, in your uniform, in your roller banners, because that's how people are going to find you, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Brand identity is absolutely key, because brand identity then creates brand loyalty and so on. So talking about customers, oh, scary word. So Jade, how did you find those first customers, or should I say, how did they find you?
So I've been really lucky with my customer base, because I knew the power of networking. So most people join networking and visit a networking group, whichever group it is, there's so many of them around. So you go as a visitor, and then after the first time, they don't get anybody contact them for a sale out of that group. And a lot of people think that that's how networking is, and it's not. Networking is about investing time and energy into a particular group, whoever it's with, getting to know that group, getting them to understand your business as well as you understanding everybody else in the room's business, so that you can become essentially a sales rep for that person. And then when one of your friends says, I need this, you go, I know somebody from my network, I'm going to refer you. And so it takes time to develop a relationship, trust. You know, I've been part of the one I'm with now for about 18 months, and it's only in the last year really. So the first 6 months were pretty much a write-off. Like, I didn't get anything because people were still trying to suss me out, whether I'm true to my word, whether I'm not. Then someone finally took a chance on me, and then the next person, then the next one, and then whilst I'm getting all this feedback and testimonials, I'm pasting them everywhere as much as I can. It's like, hey, I'm okay at this, you know, I've got this. I'm good at this. You could trust me. So I, thankfully, touch wood quickly, I've never had to advertise, and I've never had to do anything other than networking. So I don't actually actively look for clients, they find me, which is
well done you.
Super. Like, I find I'm really lucky with that. Yeah.
And that's obviously credit to you, that you must be doing a good job for people to have that faith in you to continue to come to you. So well done. Fantastic.
Thanks.
Debbie, obviously, again, a completely different sort of scenario with regards to trying to connect and reach with your customers. I know a lot of them come through referrals, through those partners that you've created, those collaborative partners that you're working with. But I think with you, I'd like to touch on more the use of social media. Is social media important for you to stay connected with your customers?
Yeah, absolutely. And the partners referred into us now, but it took us a long time to build up that trust with them. Partners won't, they won't refer into you immediately. You have to show that you are worth sending somebody to, that you are going to look after their customer, if you like, or in my case, it would be, their client, not the client, their patients sometimes, if it's come from a GP practice or if it's come from one of the other organizations. So it is about building that relationship and that trust with, your community. But yeah, social media, especially in the early days, has been so useful for us. It was free advertising, it was getting our name out there, it was showing people who we were and how they could access our service. And we already had a little bit of a following because Sean's story, when we sadly lost him, it was in the local newspaper. Also our friends and family would also emotionally invested, so they would share our page. But that really, really helped us to start building a little bit of momentum. And then, the news would get round from the work we were doing, from the pictures that we were posting, that, we were showing them that these are the guys who come to our service. Look, they are absolutely, average people. They've got family, they've got children. You don't, because I think some people, especially in the line of work that I'm in at the moment, when they hear a mental health organisation, there is still a stigma around men's mental health, and we were trying to overcome that by showing the faces of those who attend, obviously with their permission, but saying, look, these are the people who are coming to him. This is, Joe, he's an artist, he's got a wife, he's got kids, he works full time. This is Stephen, this is what he does. And by sharing their stories, it was encouraging other men to say, well, actually, I can relate to that, or it doesn't look too bad there, I can see what they're doing well. So social media give us that platform to share them stories and them experiences, so that we could encourage other men to sort of come along to us. But we could also speak to the families as well, because obviously men do find it difficult to make that first step. So what we were able to do is build a bit of a relationship, albeit virtually, with the wives or with the mums, so that they could give them a gentle nudge, because they did the hard work for them. They'd seek us out on social media, they'd message us, we'd tell them a bit about us, and then they'd go and do the hard work at home by encouraging them to join us. But that would never have happened without social media platforms.
Yeah, so it's been really important for you, hasn't it, to show, the authenticity really of what you're trying to achieve and how you're trying to achieve it. I know that we haven't got a huge amount of time, and there are a thousand questions I would love to ask you both. But I think certainly one of the things that I would like to make sure that we get in today is Jade. Okay, so if you could go back in time and give yourself some advice in those early days setting up your business, what would it be?
I would definitely get clearer on my goals. It's all very well saying I want to do this and I want to be a business, but what type of business, how far do you want to take it, where do you see yourself in 5 years, even 10 years? Is it something that you're going to keep going and pass down the family, or is it something that you want to build up to a point and then sell so that you can move on to something else? Like, what are your, or just thinking about the options that are available. Like, I didn't really realize, and I'm starting to think about that now, 2 years in. It's not the end of the world that I'm doing it now. I think any time's good to do it, but at the beginning would have been a nice sort of thing. And also my business didn't really take, even though it started in January 2019, it didn't really take off till April, because it was actually my second source of income back then. It wasn't my main focus at all, and I was very, very relaxed with it. As soon as lockdown hit, my other business shut down overnight. So that in April this year just suddenly turned my life around completely. So I had to rethink the business model for now, in terms of like having, you know, meetings over Zoom, or, you know, how am I going to do this? And then I'm now thinking about, well, what am I going to do when lockdown's over and the world goes back to normal? You know, how am I going to adapt my business then? Am I going to carry on with doing meetings on Zoom? Am I going to, you know, so I need to just, I think, planning for that as well, even now, and how it's going to change the business, because I know you can't predict a lot of it, but just having an idea will then decrease the anxiety in the future.
Yeah, we don't have a crystal ball, unfortunately, so we don't know what the future holds, but all we can do is be as agile as we can be to try and, as they say, pivot our businesses, look at, you know, what opportunities are out there. And again, that's where that sort of business plan model comes into force again, doesn't it? Just reviewing all of those elements and seeing what has changed and what can you change and what can you adapt with and how can you diversify and so on. And I actually thank you before, by the way, for admitting the fact that you had reviewed that website and renewed it a few times. It's time since you've started, because I think sometimes people are very scared of admitting, you know, that actually things weren't right the first time and they have had to change things. You know, we have to be able to be flexible for things to work, because of that fact that we don't know what the future holds. We need to be able to change and adapt as things move forward. Is that right?
Yeah, and I think being honest with yourself is the most key thing. You know, people talk about being authentic, people talk about having integrity, and you know, and that's all those buzzwords that people want to hear. But if you're not actually authentically true to yourself, how the hell can anybody else buy into that in your business? So yeah, I don't mind admitting that I had to change it 6 times, and I don't mind that I had to, you know, rethink my whole business model, and I didn't actually put 100% into it until April this year. That I'm okay with that. I'm okay with admitting that, because it just makes me more real, and just people can see that, you know, businesses aren't right from day one. Businesses grow, they're constantly growing, and the day that it stops growing is the day you need to assess what's going wrong. So yeah, having an adaptable plan that can change with you and grow with you is something I would like to have known back then. Yeah, because if I'd have known that, I wouldn't have been so hard on myself, because I felt like a failure every time I changed the website, every time I changed the model. I felt like I was failing. And so much so that here, I have a sticker here. I am good enough, because I have to remind myself that I'm good enough at my job, because I still sometimes don't believe it, but that's okay.
No, absolutely, you are good enough. Thank you, Jade, for sharing. We do appreciate that. And as sometimes we do need those gentle reminders, just to tell ourselves, if, you know, we don't always hear it from everybody else, you know, and we have to always have that self-belief again, don't we?
Yeah,
for sure. Okay, so Debbie, coming to you, you know, obviously there are a lot of people out there now that lockdown has changed everything this year. For some has been a total washout, for others it's just been manic changes. You know, things have changed for the better, sometimes for the negative. But, you know, obviously, how have you adapted your services? How has Sean's place changed with lockdown? Because, you know, this has been quite, as they say, an unprecedented year.
Yeah, it has been a whirlwind. It's been a crazy year to have a startup organisation. Lockdown, our business grew during lockdown, you know, which we expected. But it wasn't for that more people were suffering with the mental health. It was that more people had time to go and seek support. We had a lot of people who were on furlough who can't get to the GP 9 to 5, and all of a sudden they had the option to be able to pick up the phone and speak to somebody during working hours. So we suddenly become full to capacity. You know, if you was going to ask me what my advice would have been, it was going to be prepared, because I thought Sean's place was going to be, you know, something I did on a Sunday, and it literally grew tenfold overnight. And I don't think I sort of had the belief in myself that I was capable of running an organisation as big as it's got, even though it's still only a small community group. The difference that we're making to the guys who are attending has been huge. And yeah, lockdown sort of gave us the time to, okay, we've been open since January, we're now in April. We've got to close our face-to-face classes. We're doing them online, but let's use this as an opportunity to reflect on what we've done so far and where we're going to go. So it allowed us a bit of breathing space as well. So we could sort of sit back and say, okay, what's worked well? What hasn't worked well? How the hell are we going to adapt online? You know, everything that we do is about getting people out of isolation. You know, we support people who are isolated, and now we're like, okay, now you need to go and isolate. It wasn't a nice feeling to have to do, and it really affected me. And I just thought, this goes against everything that we're trying to achieve. But then we got creative. It forced us to think outside the box. And as I mentioned before, I've got the most wonderful team around me. And, you know, Jacqueline, you were there with us. We were packing, doing wellbeing boxes. We were delivering ingredients to people's doorsteps. We created a cookbook with our members. And we just had a little bit of fun with it, really, as best we could. But it was never going to be as impactful as it would be if we were able to see them face to face. We still had people struggling. It was still frustrating for us because we knew people were struggling and we couldn't get to them the way that we wanted. So when the lockdown restrictions eased and we could meet face to face, some support services said no, we're absolutely still not meeting face to face, it's not safe. But we were like, okay, we can still meet face to face and we can do it in a safe way. So we chose to reopen. And now Boris is still letting us meet in groups of 15. So Sean's place is able to still stay open, albeit we have to, you know, stick to government guidance and we have to do it in, you know, it's in smaller groups. But it's, yeah, I think lockdown, it forced us to reevaluate where we're going. And because we were so new, we had that flexibility. I think organisations that have been so set in their ways for the last 10 years will have found it a lot more difficult to adapt than the likes of myself and Jade, who were just starting off on our journey, if you like. So it wasn't all bad, is what I'm trying to say. Some people were really, their businesses have really been affected by lockdown, but you can sometimes flip it on its head and turn it into positives as well, which I hope that we managed to do.
No, absolutely wonderful. And again, you mentioned objectives, Jade. That's one of those key things, again, at the very beginning of your journey that really does help, because it gives you some sort of direction. What I tend to say as a business advisor is one of the first tasks, as you know, when you're looking at that business plan, is what are your objectives? What are you trying to achieve? Not just for yourself, but for the business as well. And for some, it is just a little side hustle, and they're happy to just do it alongside another role, and it may just pay for their car or help towards a new house or whatever it is that they're trying to achieve for themselves. Or similarly, it could be that actually they want this to be able to replace that income that they have at the moment, or to be able to give them an income if they don't currently have one. And so it's about setting those objectives, but following what we call the SMART model. Be specific. What is it that you want to achieve? Make it measurable. How will you know if you've achieved it or you've come anywhere near that? Achievable. It's not just pie in the sky, blue sky thinking, but it is something that can be achieved. Realistic. That means, do you have the resources, the time, the skills, the market research? Have you got the demand there? Have you got the suppliers, the customer base, all of that? And then time bound by when? And again, as you said, you know, setting those sort of short term 6 to 12 month objective goals, then maybe the medium term, next 2 to 3 years, and then that longer term, those sort of 5 years plus, what's potentially the exit strategy for you? You sort of mentioned again, touched on whether that's building up the business to be able to sell on to somebody else, or whether you could franchise it, or all of those sorts of things. There's lots of opportunities out there, but we need to be open to them. But we can only sort of start creating strategies to try and achieve those objectives if we know what we're trying to achieve. So I know that we're running out of time now, and it's been an absolute pleasure to speak to you both, and I really do appreciate your time in coming and joining us here today, and hopefully a lot of people out there have actually learned something from what you've been able to say today and sharing your stories. So I'd just like to close by saying thank you to everybody who has attended and taken the time to listen to us today. My name again is Jacqueline Daly from the Women's Organisation, and the Women's Organisation are a not-for-profit organisation based in Liverpool, and we are delivery partners of the Enterprise Hub, which is a fully funded support network for anybody who has a business idea. And you can contact us through enterprisehub@thewo.org.uk, or through the Women's Organisation website, which is www.womensorganisation.org.uk. And also, obviously, the BIPC, the Business and Intellectual Property Centre at Liverpool Central Library, and they are available at libraries.enquiries@liverpool.gov.uk, telephone number 0151 233 5835. Thank you.